Rome, 68 AD. The mightiest empire in the world stood on the brink of collapse. Nero, the last emperor of the Julio-Claudian dynasty, had just taken his own life in a dilapidated villa outside the city, bringing an end to his controversial 14-year reign. His death was not a peaceful conclusion, but the culmination of a series of dark events that plunged Rome into its deepest crisis in nearly a century. The Julio-Claudian dynasty, founded by Augustus in 27 BC, had ruled Rome for 95 years, enduring the dark times under Tiberius, the madness of Caligula, and the fragile stability under Claudius. But now, with Nero, it was over. The following year, 69 AD, would go down in history as the year of the Four Emperors, a year of civil war, betrayal, and violence, as four different men rose to power and fell in a brutal struggle for supremacy. This period marked not only the end of a great dynasty, but also the harshest test of Rome's resilience. Welcome to the story of the most chaotic year in ancient Roman history, the year of the Four Emperors. To understand this chaos, we must first look back to Nero's final days and the events leading to his downfall. When Nero ascended the throne in 54 AD, at the age of 16, he was seen as a promising young emperor. Under the guidance of Seneca, a renowned Stoic philosopher, and Burrus, the loyal commander of the Praetorian Guard. The early years of his reign, often called the Quinquennium Neronis, brought stability and hope to Rome. He reduced taxes, hosted lavish festivals, and even sponsored poets and artists, a rarity for a Roman emperor. But beneath the surface, the seeds of destruction were sown early. Agrippina the Younger, Nero's mother and the most powerful woman in Rome at the time, controlled the court with an iron grip. She not only ensured Nero's rise to the throne, but also appeared alongside him on coins of privilege, unprecedented for an empress mother. However, Agrippina's ambition led to irreconcilable conflict with Nero. In 59 AD, Nero ordered her assassination in a sinister plot, a boat designed to collapse, staging Agrippina's death as an accident. When the plan failed and Agrippina survived, Nero did not hesitate to send assassins to finish the job. Agrippina's death was not only a turning point in Nero's reign, but also a sign that he had broken free from all restraint. After Agrippina, Nero's reign took an even darker turn. He executed Octavia, his first wife and the daughter of Claudius, an act that outraged the Roman people, especially the lower classes who admired Octavia for her kindness. He was also accused of causing the death of Poppaea Sabina, his second wife, whom he deeply loved, by kicking her in the stomach during a fit of rage, leading to her death while pregnant. These brutal acts not only cost Nero the support of the nobility, but also caused the public to question his leadership. But that was not all. The Great Fire of 64 AD, one of the worst disasters in Roman history, consumed 10 of the city's 14 districts over 6 days. Thousands perished, countless others were left homeless, and whispers spread that Nero himself had ordered the fire to clear land for his dream project, the Domus Aurea, lavish palace he envisioned building. Though Nero tried to quell the rumors by blaming the Christians and brutally persecuting them, burning them alive, crucifying them, or throwing them to wild beasts in the Aranathes, efforts only fueled public anger. A popular tale claimed that as Rome burned, Nero stood on a hill, playing his lyre and reciting poetry about the fall of Troy, as if reveling in the horrific scene before him. While this story may have been propaganda spread by Nero's enemies, it cemented his image as a deranged and irresponsible emperor in the minds of the Roman people. The discontent was not confined to the city of Rome. In the far-flung provinces, Nero faced significant challenges. The revolt of Boudica in Britannia, from 60 to 61 AD, is a prime example. Boudica, queen of the Iceni tribe, led a rebellion against Roman oppression after her husband's death and the confiscation of her tribe's wealth. Her forces ravaged Roman cities like Londinium, modern-day London, killing tens of thousands before being crushed by the Roman general Gaius Suetonius Paulinus. This revolt not only exposed Nero's weakness in managing the provinces, but also deepened discontent in the empire's distant lands. In the east, the First Jewish-Roman War erupted in 66 AD, sparked by religious tensions and Roman oppression in Judea. Nero sent General Vespasian to quell the uprising, But the prolonged and costly war drained Rome's treasury, forcing provinces like Egypt and Syria reliant on trade to bear the burden of increasing taxes. A small but telling story from Syria recounts a wealthy merchant named Marcellus, who lost his entire fortune due to Nero's tax hikes to fund the Domus Aurea. Marcellus, once a loyal supporter of the Julio-Claudian dynasty, publicly denounced Nero at a market in Antioch, calling him the destroyer of the empire. His words spread quickly, and though Marcellus was arrested and executed, his story inspired others to consider opposing Nero. Within Rome itself, discontent reached a boiling point. A small but significant conspiracy emerged in 67 AD, when a group of merchants and veterans in Ostia, Rome's main port, secretly plotted to overthrow Nero. Calling themselves the Protectors of Rome, their leader, a veteran named Lucius, declared that Nero was no longer worthy of the throne for turning Rome into a stage for madness. The conspiracy was quickly uncovered when a member betrayed the group to the authorities. Lucius and his allies were publicly executed at the Roman Forum, but their story spread among the lower classes, intensifying resentment toward Nero. A Roman citizen, recorded by the historian Tacitus, spoke at a market gathering. "Nero may sing well, but he cannot rule. Rome needs a warrior, not an artist." Such sentiments reflected the public's growing exhaustion with Nero's extravagance and eccentricity, from his public stage performances to his lavish spending while the people suffered. Discontent even spread to the military, the backbone of Roman power. The legions in Germania and Britannia, once loyal to the Julio-Claudian dynasty, began questioning Nero's leadership. A story recorded by the historian Suetonius tells of a young officer in Germania named Gaius Marcellinus, who refused to carry out Nero's order to increase taxes to fund lavish ceremonies in Rome. Marcellinus told his soldiers, "We shed blood to defend Rome, not to build palaces for a madman." Though Marcellinus was disciplined, his words resonated, fueling unrest within the military. By 68 AD, this discontent erupted into action. Gaius Julius Vindex, governor of Gallia Lugdunensis, led a revolt against Nero in March 68 AD. Vindex, a Gaul by origin but loyal to Rome, declared Nero a tyrant and called for support for a new emperor, Servius Sulpicius Galba, the governor of Hispania Tarraconensis. Though Vindex's revolt was swiftly crushed by loyal legions at the Battle of Vesantio, it sparked a chain of events that could not be stopped. The Praetorian Guard, the emperor's protectors, also turned against Nero. They were bribed by Galba's supporters, who promised generous rewards if they abandoned Nero. On June 9, 68 AD, the Senate declared Nero a public enemy, a death sentence for any Roman. Abandoned by all, Nero fled Rome in disguise, seeking refuge at the villa of a freedman named Phaon, about 4 miles from the city. As soldiers closed in, Nero, with the help of his loyal secretary Epaphroditus, stabbed himself in the throat. His final words, according to Suetonius, were, "What an artist dies with me." Before his death, Nero reportedly ordered his beloved lyre to be burned, unwilling to leave any trace of his artistic legacy to his enemies. Nero's death left Rome in chaos and without a leader. The Julio-Claudian dynasty, once a symbol of Rome's glory, was finished, and the empire lacked a clear successor for the first time in nearly a century. Galba, whom Vindex had supported before his death, became the new emperor. At 72 years old, Galba was a conservative and stoic noble, a respected governor in Spain. He arrived in Rome in late 68 AD, bringing hopes of stability. But Galba failed to realize that the Rome he inherited had changed forever. Loyalty now belonged not to lineage or tradition, but to money, power, and the support of the military. A small story from Rome at the time tells of a blacksmith named Titus, who witnessed the chaotic scene at the Forum when Galba arrived. Titus told his family, "Galba may be a good man, but he doesn't understand that the throne now belongs to the highest bidder." Titus's words proved prophetic. Just weeks after Galba's rise, the legions in Germania began whispering about choosing another emperor, Aulus Vitellius, a general beloved by his soldiers. Meanwhile, the Praetorian Guard, accustomed to receiving bribes from Nero, expected Galba to reward them handsomely for their support. But Galba, with his frugal nature, refused. He declared, "I choose my soldiers. I do not buy them." This noble statement, however, was a fatal mistake. The Praetorian Guard felt insulted, and their support for Galba began to waver. Meanwhile, another man was quietly plotting, Marcus Salvius Otho, a noble who had once been Nero's close friend. Otho, exiled to Lusitania by Nero after Nero stole Poppaea Sabina from him, now saw opportunity in the chaos. A story recorded by the historian Dio Cassius tells of a secret meeting at Otho's house in Rome, where he invited Praetorian commanders and promised them a large sum if they supported him as emperor. One commander, named Sextus, reportedly said, "Nero may be dead, but Rome still needs someone who knows how to please us." These words reflected the Praetorians' mindset. They cared not for ideals, but for personal gain. The year of the 4 emperors was about to begin, and Rome would soon witness the brutality of civil war. But before we move to the next chapter, let us pause to reflect. Nero, for all his failures, left behind a shattered Rome. Could Galba heal these wounds, or would he become the first victim of the chaos Nero left behind? Nero's death has ushered in a new era of instability, but can Galba restore order, or will he become the first victim of this chaos? Let us witness the rise and fall of the first emperor in 69 AD. Rome, early 69 AD. The empire was plunged into chaos following the death of Nero, the last emperor of the Julio-Claudian dynasty. Servius Sulpicius Galba, a 72-year-old conservative noble, had been declared the new emperor, bringing with him hopes of stability after Nero's controversial 14-year reign. But within weeks of entering the city, Galba faced insurmountable challenges. The Rome of 69 AD was no longer the Rome of Augustan Empire, where lineage and tradition dictated power. Power now rested in the hands of the military and the Praetorian Guard, who swore allegiance not to ideals, but to wealth and personal gain. Galba, with his rigid, old-fashioned principles, failed to grasp this shift. This part of the story will recount the rapid downfall of Galba and the dramatic rise of Marcus Salvius Otho, the second emperor in the year of the 4 emperors, a year that would witness the brutality of civil war and the fragility of supreme power. Galba entered Rome in late 68 AD, greeted by a crowd that was both hopeful and skeptical. He was an elderly man, a respected governor of Hispania Tarraconensis, known for being strict but just. However, from the very beginning, Galba disappointed those who had placed their hopes in him. One of his first decisions was to refuse a reward for the Praetorian Guard, the force that had played a pivotal role in Nero's downfall and Galba's rise to power. The Praetorians, accustomed to receiving bribes from Nero, expected Galba to pay them a substantial sum as a token of their loyalty. But Galba, with his frugal and principled nature, bluntly refused. He declared before a crowd at the Roman Forum, "I choose my soldiers, I do not buy them." While noble in theory, this statement was a fatal mistake. The Praetorian Guard felt deeply insulted, and their loyalty to Galba began to waver from the earliest days of his reign. Discontent was not limited to the Praetorians. The common people of Rome, who had once supported Nero for his generosity in hosting festivals and distributing food, also turned against Galba. A story recorded by the historian Tacitus tells of a woman named Livia, a seamstress in the Subura crowded slum in Rome. Livia had attended festivals organized by Nero, where she and her family received free food and watched chariot races at the Circus Maximus. When Galba took the throne, he slashed public spending, including food distributions, to restore Rome's depleted treasury after Nero's reign. Livia, during a gathering at the market, told her neighbors, "Nero may have been mad, but at least we weren't hungry. Galba only cares about gold, not the people." Livia's words quickly spread, reflecting the growing sentiment among the common folk. They didn't need a stoic emperor, they needed someone who understood their struggles. Galba also stirred controversy among the nobility. To replenish the treasury, he ordered the confiscation of property from those suspected of supporting Nero, including some senators and wealthy aristocrats. A notable case was that of Publius Cornelius, a senator who had served under Claudius and Nero. Publius, though not entirely loyal to Nero, had his entire estate in Campaniaeum, including a large farm. and hundreds of slaves seized by Galba. Publius pleaded with Galba in the Senate, but Galba coldly refused, stating, "Rome needs funds to rebuild, and those who served a tyrant deserve no mercy." While well-intentioned, this action cost Galba the support of the elite, who were already skeptical of his leadership. A minor conspiracy against Galba was recorded in late 68 AD, when a group of young senators, led by a man named Gaius Licinius, secretly plotted to overthrow him. They called Galba a betrayer of Roman tradition and sought support from the legions in Germania. The plot was quickly uncovered when a slave of Gaius Licinius betrayed his master and reported to the authorities. Gaius and his allies were executed, but the incident revealed that Galba had lost the trust of not only the military and the people, but also the aristocracy. Meanwhile, in the provinces, the response to Galba's reign was equally lukewarm. In Egypt, which supplied much of Rome's grain, the local governor, a man named Tiberius Alexander, refused to send grain to Rome until Galba could prove he had control over the empire. Alexander, a Jew by origin but loyal to Rome, feared that the chaos in Rome would spark rebellions in Egypt, where religious tensions between Jews and Greeks had long simmered. A story from Alexandria tells of a Greek merchant named Demetrius, who openly mocked Galba at a marketplace, saying, "A 72-year-old man wants to rule Rome? We'll soon see this empire crumble." Demetrius' words, though meant as a jest, reflected the broader sentiment in the provinces. They lacked confidence in Galba's leadership, and the unrest in Rome only deepened their doubts. Amid this turmoil, Galba sought to consolidate his power by naming a successor. He chose to adopt Lucius Calpurnius Piso Licinianus, a 31-year-old nobleman, as his heir. Piso was a man of good reputation, hailing from a distinguished family, but he had no ties to the military or the Praetorian Guard. This decision only deepened the discontent. The Praetorians, already disillusioned by the lack of rewards, felt sidelined by Galba's choice of a successor with no military experience. A Praetorian commander named Marcellus was said to have told his comrades, "Galba thinks we'll die for a man like Piso? He doesn't understand that Rome now belongs to those who wield the sword." Marcellus's words reflected the harsh reality of the era. The emperor's power no longer rested on lineage or the Senate's approval, but on the military support. While Galba struggled to hold on to the throne, another man was quietly making his move, Marcus Salvius Otho. At 36 years old, Otho was a charismatic, ambitious, and cunning noble. He had once been a close friend of Nero, but their relationship soured when Nero stole Otho's first wife, Poppaea Sabina, and made her his own. Nero then exiled Otho to Lusitania, modern-day Portugal, where he served as governor for nearly a decade. In Lusitania, Otho proved himself a capable administrator, building strong ties with the local people and the military. A story recorded by the historian Suetonius tells of a Lusitanian woman named Aemilia, who gifted Otho a small wooden statue to thank him for building a new road connecting villages in the region. Aemilia told Otho, "You are a Roman, but you understand us better than anyone." This story reveals that Otho was not just ambitious but also skilled at winning people's hearts, a talent he would use to seize the throne. Following Nero's death, Otho returned to Rome, harboring ambitions of becoming emperor. He quickly realized that the Praetorian Guard was the key to achieving his goal. Otho began bribing them, promising each man a large sum of money if they supported him. A secret meeting at Otho's home in Rome, recorded by the historian Dio Cassius, showcases his negotiating prowess. Otho invited the Praetorian commanders to his house, treating them to fine Falernian wine and roasted pork. During the feast he declared, "Galba can keep his gold, but I will give you an emperor who values loyalty." Otho's words, coupled with the bags of gold he distributed, swiftly won the Praetorian support. On January 15, 69 AD, just 3 months after Galba's rise to power, Otho launched a coup. The Praetorian Guard declared Otho emperor, and a small force marched into the Roman Forum, where Galba was presiding over a ceremony. The scene that followed was horrific. Galba, at 72 years old, was dragged from his litter and hacked to death in the middle of the forum. The crowd, witnessing the massacre, screamed in panic. Galba's head was severed and paraded through the streets of Rome by a soldier named Julius Carus. Piso, Galba's chosen successor, was hunted down and killed shortly after, his body left on the street. A Roman citizen named Sextus, recorded by Tacitus, remarked as he witnessed the scene, "Today it's Galba. Tomorrow it could be anyone." Rome has become an arena. Sextus's words captured the chaos and fear that gripped the city. Otho, now emperor, ascended the throne amid turmoil. He tried to win over the people by showing reverence for Nero, organizing a public funeral for him, and even adopting the title Nero Otho to evoke memories of the previous reign. This earned him support from the common people, who still remembered Nero's generosity. A small story from Rome at the time tells of a baker named Marcus, who attended Nero's funeral organized by Otho. Marcus told his family, "Otho understands us. He knows we still love Nero, no matter what he did." But Otho soon realized his throne was far from secure. In Germania, the legions under the command of Aulus Vitellius had declared Vitellius emperor on January 1, 69 AD, just 2 weeks before Otho's rise. Vitellius, a general beloved by his soldiers, assembled a formidable army and marched toward Rome to claim the throne. Otho, recognizing the threat, prepared for war. He gathered an army of loyal soldiers and praetorians and marched north to confront Vitellius. In April 69 AD, the two armies met at the Battle of Bedriacum near Cremona. The battle was fierce, with thousands of soldiers killed in a single day. Otho's army, though it fought bravely, was defeated by Vitellius's superior forces. A story recorded by Suetonius tells of a young soldier in Otho's army named Gaius, who survived the battle and recounted, "We fought for Otho, but Vitellius had too many men. I saw my brothers fall, and I knew it was over." Realizing defeat was inevitable, Otho chose not to prolong the civil war. He took his own life on April 16, 69 AD, just 95 days after taking the throne. Before his death, he told his soldiers, "Let Rome find peace." Otho, though defeated, left a mark as an emperor willing to sacrifice himself to avoid further bloodshed. Galba and Otho have fallen, but the battle for Rome's throne is far from over. A new emperor is rising, and another waits in the shadows. Can Vitellius hold the throne, or will another force emerge? Let's explore the next chapter of this year of chaos. Rome, mid-69 AD. With the death of Marcus Salvius Otho, Aulus Vitellius became the third emperor in this tumultuous year, known to history as the Year of the Four Emperors. Vitellius, a general beloved by the legions of Germania, had seized the throne after his victory at the Battle of Bedriacum, where his army defeated Otho's forces in a bloody day of conflict. But Vitellius's reign, lasting less than 8 months, would soon prove that power gained through the military could just as easily be taken away by it. This part of the story not only recounts Vitellius's rise and fall, but also delves into the internal contradictions of a man thrust into a position of power he was unprepared to wield. It is also the story of a fractured Rome, where loyalty was bought and sold, and the extravagance of the ruling class stood in stark contrast to the suffering of the people. While Vitellius celebrated his victory, a new force was quietly rising in the east, poised to change everything. Aulus Vitellius, at 54 years old, was a man of contradictions. He was neither a brilliant warrior nor a skilled politician, but he possessed a quality that endeared him to his soldiers: generosity and approachability. Vitellius was born into a noble Roman family, but he was not raised to lead. His father, Lucius Vitellius E.G., had been a prominent senator and close friend of Emperor Claudius, but Aulus was better known for his love of food and lavish lifestyle. The historian Suetonius described Vitellius as a man with a bulging belly and a passion for feasts that lasted all day. A story from Vitellius's youth tells of him hosting a 3-day banquet at his family's villa on the outskirts of Rome, inviting hundreds of guests and serving extravagant dishes like flamingo tongues and peacock brains. Such feasts not only reflected Vitellius's lifestyle but also highlighted his lack of political acumen. In a Rome facing economic crisis after Nero's reign, his extravagance only fueled public discontent. Despite his lack of military prowess, Vitellius was beloved by the legions in Germania. He was appointed commander of the legions in Germania Inferior in 68 AD, a position many believed he secured through his father's connections rather than his own merit. But in Germania, Vitellius discovered an unexpected talent, the ability to connect with his soldiers. He frequently dined with them, listened to their stories, and generously distributed bonuses from the military treasury. A story recorded by Tacitus tells of a young soldier in Germania named Decimus, who was injured in a skirmish with local tribes. When Decimus thought he would be left to die, Vitellius personally visited him, gave him a bag of coins, and ensured he was sent to Rome for treatment. This small act made Vitellius a hero in the eyes of his soldiers. Thus, when the legions proclaimed him emperor on January 1, 69 AD, Vitellius initially hesitated. He had no ambition to be emperor, and the historian Dio Cassius recorded that Vitellius once told a close friend, "I only want a peaceful life with good meals." But the fervent support of his soldiers persuaded him, and Vitellius, though reluctant, accepted the throne. After his victory at the Battle of Bedriacum in April 69 AD, Vitellius led his army toward Rome. The march took nearly 3 months, not only due to the distance but also because Vitellius frequently stopped to host lavish feasts along the way. A story from the region of Venetia tells of a small town called Aquileia, where Vitellius and his army stayed for a week. Vitellius demanded that the locals prepare a grand feast, with hundreds of pigs and cattle slaughtered, while the townspeople faced food shortages due to a poor harvest. A local woman named Claudia was said to have told her husband, "Vitellius celebrates his victory, but we pay the price with hunger." This story quickly spread, increasing discontent with Vitellius even before he reached Rome. Vitellius officially entered Rome in July 69 AD, welcomed as a victor. He attempted to win over the people by hosting public feasts and distributing gifts, but these actions rapidly drained Rome's already depleted treasury. One of Vitellius's most infamous feasts was called the Feast of Minerva, where he served a massive dish made from the livers of thousands of fish, the tongues of hundreds of birds, and the brains of dozens of peacocks. Suetonius recorded that the dish was so heavy it required 20 men to carry it to the table. While Vitellius and his guests indulged in this extravagance, the people of Rome, particularly the lower classes, faced famine. A baker from the Aventine district named Lucius, recorded by Tacitus, spoke at a market gathering, "Vitellius eats peacock brains while we have no bread. Is this the Rome he promised to save?" Lucius's words reflected the growing disillusionment among the people. They had hoped Vitellius would bring stability, but instead, he continued down the path of excess that Nero had trodden. Discontent was not limited to the people. Vitellius's army, primarily composed of Germanic soldiers, became a source of chaos. Once in Rome, these soldiers grew arrogant and brutal, looting shops, attacking civilians, and even causing disturbances in temples. A notable incident occurred at the Temple of Jupiter on the Capitoline Hill, where a group of drunken Germanic soldiers vandalized a sacred statue of Jupiter. A priest at the temple, named Gaius Marcellus, tried to stop them but was savagely beaten and left near death. This event sparked outrage among the Roman people, who saw it as an unforgivable act of sacrilege. A Roman woman named Flavia, recorded by Dio Cassius, told her neighbors, "Vitellius can't control his own army. If he can't protect the gods, how can he protect us?" Flavia's words reflected a harsh truth. Vitellius, though beloved by his soldiers, lacked the ability to control them once they reached Rome. While Vitellius was immersed in luxury and chaos in Rome, a new force was rising in the east. Titus Flavius Vespasian, a 59-year-old skilled general, was commanding Roman forces in the First Jewish-Roman War in Judea. Vespasian was a man of modest origins, not from the high nobility, but he had risen through military talent and discipline. He enjoyed strong support from the legions in Egypt and Syria, as well as the eastern provinces. A story from Syria tells of a soldier under Vespasian's command named Marcus Antonius, who had fought in the Judean campaign. Marcus recounted that Vespasian often walked alongside his soldiers, shared their meager rations, and even helped them pitch tents on cold nights. These small acts made Vespasian a deeply respected leader. On July 1, 69 AD, Vespasian's legions in Egypt, led by Tiberius Alexander, proclaimed him emperor. The legions in Syria quickly followed suit, and Vespasian, though in Alexandria to secure Egypt's grain supply for the empire, accepted the title. Vespasian sent his generals, led by Marcus Antonius Primus, to march on Rome and seize the throne. Primus, a brilliant but impulsive general, led his army through the Balkans and northern Italy with astonishing speed. Meanwhile, in Rome, Vitellius seemed oblivious to the approaching threat. He continued to host feasts and festivals, even ordering a golden statue of himself to be erected in the Roman Forum. A story recorded by Suetonius tells of a sculptor named Publius, tasked with completing the statue. Publius told a friend, "I carved this statue, but I know it won't stand long. Rome doesn't need a golden god. It needs a true leader." Publius's words proved prophetic. In December 69 AD, Vespasian's army clashed with Vitellius's forces in the Second Battle of Bedriacum, again near Cremona. Vitellius's army, though numerous, lacked discipline and morale. Many of the Germanic soldiers had grown lazy after months of luxury in Rome, and they were no match for Vespasian's disciplined forces. The battle was fierce, but Vitellius's army was quickly defeated. A soldier in Vitellius's army named Sextus, recorded by Tacitus, recounted, "We fought, but our hearts weren't in it. Vitellius made us forget what it means to be a Roman soldier." After the battle, Vitellius, realizing his defeat, attempted to negotiate with Vespasian's forces to abdicate and save his life. He appeared before a crowd in Rome, dressed in tattered clothes, a rope around his neck, declaring his willingness to step down to save the empire. But Vespasian's forces showed no mercy. On December 20, 69 AD, Vitellius was dragged from his hiding place in a small corner of the imperial palace. He was publicly tortured on the streets of Rome, pelted with stones and jeered by the crowd. A woman named Aemilia, recorded by Dio Cassius, shouted as she saw Vitellius, "You devoured Rome, and now you'll pay." Vitellius was dragged to the Gemonian stairs, a notorious site for public executions, and beheaded. His body was thrown into the Tiber River, marking the end of his short reign of less than 8 months. Vitellius's death was not just the end of an emperor, but a symbol of the fragility of power in a fractured Rome. Vitellius, for all his faults, was not a malevolent figure like Nero, but he lacked the vision and discipline needed to lead an empire in crisis. His reign proved a harsh truth. In a world where loyalty was bought and sold, an emperor could not rely on generosity to maintain power. As Vitellius fell, Rome stood at a crossroads. Could Vespasian, the new emperor, bring the stability the empire craved, or would the scars of 69 AD continue to haunt Rome in the years to come? Vitellius has fallen, but can Vespasian bring the stability Rome so desperately needs? Or will the scars of 69 AD forever haunt the empire? Let's explore the final chapter of this year of chaos. Rome, late 69 AD. Titus Flavius Vespasian, the fourth emperor in this tumultuous year, ascended the throne after a year of civil war, betrayal, and bloodshed. With the death of Aulus Vitellius on December 2069 AD, Rome stood at a crossroads. Either continue to descend into chaos or rediscover the light of stability under the leadership of a man entirely different from his three predecessors. Unlike Galba, Otho, or Vitellius, Vespasian was not of noble lineage. He hailed from a middle-class family in the Sabine region north of Rome, rising to prominence through military skill, patience, and a rare quality for the era: practicality. This part of the story will recount how Vespasian restored Rome from the ashes of 69 AD, laying the foundations for the Flavian dynasty and leaving a legacy that would endure for centuries. This is not just the story of an emperor, but of the power of humble leadership and long-term vision in a fractured empire. Vespasian was not in Rome when he was proclaimed emperor. He was in Egypt, securing the empire's grain supply, a strategic move that not only demonstrated his foresight, but also underscored his understanding of economic stability's importance to Rome. Egypt, with its fertile wheat fields along the Nile, was Rome's primary source of grain, and controlling this region allowed Vespasian to solidify his power before setting foot in the capital. A story from Alexandria tells of an Egyptian farmer named Ammon, who met Vespasian during a field inspection. Ammon recounted that Vespasian stopped to ask about the harvest, listened with genuine attention, and even helped fix a broken wheel on Ammon's cart. Ammon told his family, "I've never seen a Roman like him. He doesn't seem like an emperor. He seems like a farmer like us." This small story reflects Vespasian's nature, a down-to-earth leader who understood the value of simplicity. Vespasian arrived in Rome in 70 AD after his generals, led by Marcus Antonius Primus, had paved the way by defeating Vitellius in the Second Battle of Bedriacum. Upon entering the capital, Vespasian faced a Rome in ruins. The treasury was depleted. The city was littered with slums left from the Great Fire of 64 AD under Nero, and the people were weary of war and instability. But Vespasian was undaunted. He set to work restoring order with a cold determination and a clear plan. One of his first actions was to reform the Praetorian Guard, the force that had become a source of chaos under Galba and Otho. Vespasian replaced disloyal members with his own supporters, often soldiers from the eastern legions that had proclaimed him emperor. He also curtailed the Praetorians' power, ensuring they could not overthrow him as they had Galba. A newly appointed Praetorian commander named Titus Marcellus, recorded by Tacitus, told his comrades, "Vespasian doesn't bribe us, but he makes us respect him. This is an emperor worth serving." Marcellus's words reflected the shift in Vespasian's leadership. Instead of relying on money, he built loyalty through respect and discipline. One of Vespasian's top priorities was the physical reconstruction of Rome. He began by rebuilding areas devastated by the fire under Nero. One of his most notable projects was the Temple of Peace, Templum Pacis, begun in 71 AD. The temple was not only a place of worship but also a symbol of the stability Vespasian sought to bring to Rome. Adorned with spoils from the war in Judea, including treasures from the Temple of Jerusalem, the Temple of Peace became a cultural center where citizens could gather, learn, and feel the empire's revival. A Roman citizen named Flavia, recorded by Dio Cassius, said while visiting the Temple of Peace, "Under Nero, we saw only smoke and fire. Under Vitellius, we saw only chaos. But now, Vespasian has given us a place to hope." Flavia's words reflected the public sentiment. They began to feel a change under Vespasian's reign. But Vespasian's most iconic project was the Roman Colosseum, later known as the Colosseum. Vespasian decided to build this arena on the site of a man-made lake that had been part of Nero's extravagant Domus Aurea Palace, constructed after the fire of 64 AD. This decision was both practical, as the land was centrally located, and symbolic. Vespasian sought to erase the memory of Nero's decadence and replace it with a structure for the people. The Colosseum, though completed under Vespasian's son Titus, became an enduring symbol of Rome's recovery. A worker at the construction site named Gaius, recorded by Suetonius, told his colleagues, "I never thought I'd help build something this grand." Vespasian isn't just building an arena, he's rebuilding Rome. Gaius's words reflected the pride the Roman people felt under Vespasian's rule. To restore Rome's treasury, Vespasian imposed a series of new taxes, some of which were controversial but effective. One of the most famous was the urine tax, levied on tanneries that used urine to treat leather ammonia in urine, being a natural cleanser. Though mocked by the aristocracy, this tax generated significant revenue for the treasury. A humorous story recorded by Suetonius tells of Titus, Vespasian's son, complaining that the tax was foul and unworthy of Rome's dignity. Vespasian held up a gold coin and asked, "Does this smell bad to you?" Titus replied, "No, father." Vespasian smiled and said, "And yet it comes from urine." This story not only highlights Vespasian's practicality but also reflects his leadership philosophy. He was willing to do whatever it took to save Rome, even if it meant enduring ridicule. Vespasian also focused on consolidating his power in the provinces, where discontent had. The year 69 AD had come to an end, but the scars it left on Rome would never fade. Known to history as the Year of the Four Emperors, it was one of the most tumultuous periods in ancient Roman history. 4 emperors, Galba, Otho, Vitellius, and Vespasian, rose to power and fell within less than 12 months, bringing with them civil war, betrayal, and bloodshed across the empire. From the tragic death of Nero the last of the Julio-Claudian dynasty, to the rise of Vespasian and the Flavian dynasty, 69 AD was not only a year of destruction, but also a grueling test of Rome's endurance. This final part of the story will reflect on the legacy of that chaotic year, the lessons Rome learned, and the new light the Flavian dynasty brought to the empire. At the same time, we will look toward the future, where Rome would face new challenges under the leadership of Vespasian's sons, Titus and Domitian. The year 69 AD stands as the clearest testament to the fragility of power in a vast empire like Rome. When Nero committed suicide, leaving the throne without an heir, Rome fell into a power vacuum for the first time in nearly a century. The Julio-Claudian dynasty, once a symbol of Rome's glory, had collapsed, and the empire was forced to confront an unprecedented question. Who would lead Rome when there was no royal lineage to rely on? Galba, Otho, and Vitellius each tried to answer this question, but they all failed for a common reason. They did not understand that power in Rome now rested not on lineage or the Senate's approval, but on the support of the military. Galba was overthrown for failing to bribe the Praetorian Guard. Otho fell because he couldn't overcome Vitellius's formidable legions. And Vitellius, though he seized the throne, could not control his own army, leading to his downfall. A small story recorded by the historian Tacitus from a Roman citizen named Lucius, who witnessed Vitellius's death, captures the sentiment. Rome is no longer an empire of laws, but an arena where the strongest prevails. Lucius's words reflect the harsh reality of 69 AD. Supreme power now belonged to those who wielded the sword, not those who wore the crown. Yet, 69 AD also taught Rome a vital lesson: the power of practical and humble leadership. Vespasian, the ultimate victor, was neither a high noble nor a great warrior, but a man from a middle-class background who understood the value of discipline and stability. He restored Rome by focusing on the essentials, rebuilding the city, strengthening the treasury, and earning the trust of the people. Projects like the Temple of Peace and the Colosseum were not just symbols of recovery, but also evidence of Vespasian's vision. He wanted Rome to be not only an empire of war, but also one of culture and unity. A Roman citizen named Flavia, recorded by the historian Dio Cassius, spoke while visiting the Colosseum during Titus's reign. Vespasian gave us a place to gather, to forget those dark days. He saved Rome. Flavia's words reflect Vespasian's greatest legacy. He not only restored order but also brought hope to a people weary of war and instability. The Flavian dynasty, beginning with Vespasian, marked a new era for Rome. Under his leadership, Rome not only survived the crisis but also laid the groundwork for future growth. Vespasian passed away in 79 AD, leaving the throne to his eldest son, Titus. Titus, who had led the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD, ascended as a young and beloved emperor. He completed the Colosseum in 80 AD and held a 100-day inauguration celebration, featuring gladiator battles and beast hunts, bringing joy to the Roman people. But Titus's reign, though promising, was short-lived. He died just 2 years later in 81 AD, leaving the throne to his brother Domitian. Domitian, the third emperor of the Flavian dynasty, would lead Rome into a new era filled with challenges. Unlike his father and brother, Domitian was known for his autocratic rule. He consolidated personal power, expanded Rome's borders in Britannia and Germania, but also stirred controversy among the nobility with his suspicion and repression. A story recorded by the historian Suetonius tells of a senator named Gaius Marcellus, who was once summoned to the palace at night by Domitian to answer a trivial question. "Do you think I should have fish or meat for dinner tonight?" Though Gaius survived the encounter, he told his friends, "Domitian doesn't just want to rule Rome, he wants us to fear him." These words foreshadow a turbulent reign, where Rome would face new questions. Could an emperor rule through fear and still maintain stability? And could the Flavian dynasty continue Vespasian's legacy, or would it be undone by its own internal conflicts? The year 69 AD changed Rome forever. It showed that supreme power was no longer the privilege of a single lineage, but a prize for those who could seize the moment and build loyalty. It also proved that Rome, though wounded, had a remarkable capacity for recovery thanks to leaders like Vespasian. As the dawn of the Flavian dynasty shone brightly over the Roman skyline, the empire stepped into a new era with hope and determination. But the future, as always, remained uncertain. Would Rome sustain the stability Vespasian had worked so hard to build, or would the shadows of the past return to haunt the empire? Transition. The year of the four emperors has come to a close, but Rome's story is far from over. Under the Flavian dynasty, what challenges will the empire face? Can Titus and Domitian carry on their father's legacy, or will Rome once again fall into darkness? Let us explore the next chapters of ancient Roman history.